Hey, welcome. Good to have you here.
Hey, thanks guys, and appreciate it. Sorry for the in and out earlier.
No, good to have you here. And Dr. Stitch, for those of you who don't know, just one of the wisest, but also most innovative doctors you'll meet. He's a founder of Wild Health. He's now exited that. He is our medical director at East West Health and just a great collaborative partner. And so you're going to hear more from him on the Go Wellness platform because he's got some unique insights and he's a bit of an innovator too. So what else did I miss? I mean,
I think you caught the most of it. We do some tech. I do some tech stuff, and I do a
yeah,
lot of consulting. But yeah, that's a more or less good summary. Well, honestly, it's thank you for the intro. It's really an honor to be here. There's nobody who's really pushing the peptide space like you are. I think you and a good friend of mine, Ryan Smith, are like the two top people that I think about when I need peptide information. So, and Ryan's sort of out of the business, so you're still fighting the good fight, which is amazing.
yeah, I appreciate that, man. That's an honor to be put up there with Ryan Smith. That dude, if I could just talk as fast as him, like I'm always like, sounds like you're on two times, Ryan. Can you just slow it down for those of us from Idaho? I'm a redneck, I need it slower.
Yeah, he's a pretty smart dude.
Yeah.
Well, let me before we jump into that, I want to talk about methylene blue just a little bit because
Oh, please.
it's like a crazy unique molecule. And if you are really, really big science geek, what you realize really quickly is this molecule has the capacity to both donate and receive electrons. So it can act as either an antioxidant or it can act as an electron carrier. So it's really, really weird. Um, and when you look at it, it's activated by light, and it actually has three different pathways that it can go through, three different covalent bonds that it can make. And I don't remember the names of the different substances, but if you look at like basically the reduced and the oxidized version, there's actually three different ways that it can bond and then transfer those electrons, which is really, really cool.
Wow.
So, who was it that mentioned Matthew? You mentioned like you didn't feel anything, right? Well, you're not going to feel anything, right? You're not going to feel anything if you have a ton of oxidative stress and it acts as an antioxidant. You won't feel a thing. You might notice like the next day you feel better. You're going to notice the energy delivery if you're in a more neutral state or if you're in a parasympathetic state, where the body's in that rest and digest or rest and recovery mode.
Hmm.
It's very
Because
fascinating.
all it's doing for, potentially for Matthew is just clearing out some of the interferences is all. And it's not really improved the expression of the cell yet and the signaling.
Yeah, totally, totally.
Got it. That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then to get the real energy benefits from it, we have to expose it to light because that's how you get to those other intermediate states. As you add light, it accepts a photon, it kicks the electrons up to a different shell. So basically they're like floating around here and then they float up around here, and that allows new bonds to form.
Yeah.
And you got to be pretty thoughtful about the light. Like I'm in my basement in my little office, and I probably have somewhere around like, I don't know, 30, 25,000 lumens. It's a pretty small, minuscule amount. When you go outdoors and you're in the sunlight, you've got millions of lumens of light.
Mm.
If you're in front of a red light, you're up around 100,000. Um, and then if you're using some other therapeutic form of therapy, you're even higher. So you got to think about that when you're using this, because if you want to get the energy benefits, then you got to quickly tell your people get outside or get in light.
Yeah. When
And
when I
we
oh
Go ahead.
when I was doing my mitochondrial experiment, I did 90 days and stacked all four of these with methylene blue. And I spent 2 hours. That was my minimum of spending 2 hours outside. Usually it was an hour in the morning as the sun was rising and as the sun was setting. And man, if you can get there, now our days are getting shorter. We just had the fall equinox, but it made such a difference in just my mood, the way I felt. So because that light activation is just so powerful for the body and getting outside, we all forget about this like super easy hack, which is being outside.
I mean, it's free. It's like I- I'm I'm working on this book, which is it's kind of a stupid book in the end because it's like, what are the things that you can do not to see a doctor? And it's the obvious stuff. It's like go outside, eat clean, and how the mechanism of all that stuff works, how the body traps stress. But it's an obvious one, and
Yeah.
everybody benefits from it. One of the reasons I also like methylene blue is it's an obvious choice, and almost everybody benefits from it.
Yeah, man. Well, and methylene blue, maybe we could touch on this just a little bit, but in the use of patients who are on SSRIs, um, we have some patients we start a really low dose, like 10 milligrams, and they seem to do pretty well on that. But if we go higher, it does kind of, they start going into a little bit of psychosis. But well, maybe you could give some insights. What's going on there? Do you understand the mechanism of action there? I haven't looked into it much.
Yeah, the risk is serotonin syndrome, I believe, and it's you get basically too much serotonin in the synapses, um, and they can go kind of nuts. You can get hyperthermia. It's a pretty rare reaction to get the extreme version of that, but it
Yeah,
is definitely something to caution. So at the places that I work or I advise, we just have protocols where the nurses are screening people, and then you warn the providers, watch out for that.
yeah,
Um, that's about it. There are a lot of people who are on those drugs, obviously, which is that's an unfortunate thing in and of themselves because they were never really designed to stay on indefinitely. That's a whole different can of worms,
right.
but that's the one major interaction. There's some people who also say, for similar reasons, that anyone who's on stimulants, you have to be cautious about it. I've used methylene blue in a lot of patients. You and I both take care of a lot of executives and a lot of these, like uber high functioning people, and a lot of them are on big doses of stimulants.
Adderall is a favorite. Yeah.
Uh, yep, yep, without question. I've not really seen that with Adderall, but I will, like, if you're looking through the literature, I'll warn everybody that is a contraindication, at least theoretically.
Yeah, I haven't seen any issues either. We find it's really helpful for down regulating their use of it, so we can get them on smaller amounts, less frequent
Hmm.
doses, adding in some new PAP, some citicoline, and then even tesofensin for the. I mean, man, it's a powerhouse. There's so many cool things. Danny. Um, Danny Rasmussen. Have you met Danny yet? Jeremy, you guys would get along great, but he said, yeah, methylene blue is
Uh,
a he wanted to administer without stating everything. What do you guys use? Yeah, I just like using the liquid Danny and just like spilling it all over a white shirt.
we
Yeah,
use little
because
squirt guns, little syringes, and shoot at each other.
um, and so here's two ways, Danny. One is there's a company. Dr. Warren. He's here in Utah. He's got a company. NeuroPro is one that we use. I'll have to find it. Maybe the suppository. The suppository. Yeah, I won't tell Dr. Laurence that you don't like some of his suppositories, Danny. But the one thing is NeuroPro. So they're just tablets you can take. And then you can do injectable methylene blue, and that's pretty nice. Like you can do an IV drop. Yeah, Cade's showing the tablet there. What's the name of that company, Cade? Maybe you could plug it in so they could
Yeah,
try.
it's Neurofuel. It comes in like a little tube. It's super easy and pretty low cost too.
Yeah, not less messy by far. And but Jeremy, what have you found? What do you have? Have you noticed that patients do better like an IV, like a bigger dose? Do you like to start smaller, more frequent doses? Do you cycle on, cycle off with the methylene blue?
Yeah, good questions. That always comes down to what's the goal, what's the purpose. It's kind of like NAD when you think about it like that. There are folks who, because of their fatigue and their mitochondrial deficiency and whatever other stressors they have going on, they're going to need their tank filled back up.
Yeah.
And those folks you're probably talking about IV, to kind of get them back to baseline, where they should be if they were taking their proper rest, getting proper sleep, eating good, the rainbow of antioxidant foods. Um, and then there's like day-to-day therapy. So for maintenance, you definitely want to find something that's a convenient form. I like the tablets as well. It's easy. There's also, there is a dropper that's got like Shilajit and methylene blue and high dose iodine in it. It tastes terrible. I cannot recall the name of it off the top of my head, but man, you do feel better. Like it's a noticeable difference.
It's like
Um,
prolamine iodine in there and Shilajit and
mhm.
methylene blue.
I'll have to go look it up. It's yeah,
Okay.
my buddy brought it over to the house and left a bottle for me.
Nice.
But
Wow.
yeah, that's for maintenance. That's what I recommend. And like anything, your body very, very quickly habituates. So a lot of things that I'll counsel, any of my patients on is if you need something today and you're taking it regularly today, well, there's a good chance in 2 or 3 months that's going to change.
Totally.
So methylene blue is no different. If you're taking it on a day-to-day maintenance, what you want to do is you want to do like 2 or 3 days on and then at least one day off.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. I mean, I think anything with biology, you got to be sensitive on the inputs because it's a feedback loop, right? Our biology is like it gets lazy. It's like, oh, you keep feeding your body C, NAD, anything. I mean, your body's going to be like, well, we don't need to make this anymore. So you can do more harm than good in the long run, and that's why you see in our protocols, Dr. Stitch, how it's like most months everybody's shifting peptides, and so we're working on different pathways. So it sounds like methylene blue's no different, and people like it so much that I have to remind them. I'm like, don't overuse it, or you're just not going to experience the benefits, and you're going to stain the shit out of your toilet. It's going to be blue forever. So
Yeah, and there's like a small percentage of people who don't.
who
It's
don't?
wild, who don't have the blue urine.
Is there really?
hmm Yeah,
Oh,
and so it's the oldest drug. I don't know
yeah,
if you knew this, like the history
1700s.
on it.
Like,
Yeah, it's fascinating.
yeah.
Um, and it has been used for diagnoses in radiology for years, like forever. And because of that, you know, there were a small percentage of people who just never responded. And that means like, the urologist would like inject it in the ureters and be looking for like reflux or leak or whatever it is that they're looking for. And not only didn't see the leak, but they didn't see blue urine. And you're like, well, why? And there's all sorts of proposed mechanisms, probably because those people are just like very taxed and it goes down one of those like rare metabolite pathways that then just gets excreted. Um,
Got it. Wow. It just breaks it down before, I mean, just absorbs all the color. Or, I mean, because
one,
methylene blue, I mean, it's a dye for clothing. That's where it was discovered.
yeah, yeah. And one of the byproducts or one of the intermediate formations of it is, I won't say it's colorless. I think it's like a greenish color. It's very subtle. Um, and it's one that the body doesn't really push down that pathway very often. So that's the working theory.
Wow, how fascinating. Um, so yeah, methylene blue originally was malaria. Is that right? I remember reading a Wikipedia page on it, and I
I don't
believe it was
remember.
like they were using it to treat malaria, and then one of the most fascinating treatments that they would do is they would use it as a placebo, and they would say, "Look, Jeremy, when you don't know what's going on, it's like, hey, I know you feel like crap." But I'm going to give you this very special new medication. And if you notice that your urine looks like kind of a green blue color, that's when we know the treatment's working. So just let me know what you see in your urine. And then patients would come back like, hey, it's working. I can see it in my urine. And then they would get better. So
Well, I'm definitely going to try that with a few people because that's brilliant.
just you give it to your kids when your kids are having a bad day. Say, hey, let me just give you this little happy molecule. You notice your pee changes color, then you're going to be happy tomorrow and everything's going to be good.
Well, one of the other really nice uses for methylene blue is, when we're doing like stem cell therapy or any kind of injection, because like kind of like any protocol that you're using, one of the goals is that you want to deliver the therapy to the location that you want it to be activated.
Mm.
All right, so let's
Sure.
just think through this. Somebody's coming in and like, let's just say it's one of our athletes and they've got like a bum knee, they got an MCL sprain or whatever. They want to get back on the field. For every week that they're off, they lose money. So their goal is as quickly as you can, like reduce that time on the bench and get them back in.
Yep.
So with a lot of these guys, what we'll do is we'll prep the body ahead of time. We'll do a whole bunch of shockwave therapy, break up loculations, basically just open up whatever that joint is, um, and increase the oxygen delivery and the nutrient delivery to it.
Okay.
And then we'll do the injection. And after that, while we're doing the injection, we'll chase it down with some methylene blue. You can also do it beforehand. Then after that, I'll use two different things. So I use a really specific 980 nanometer laser. Some people call it a cold laser, but it's not really cold. That turns on ATP in the cells in the specific area that you are targeting. So, you're doing it on a knee, you can lift up your knee and just shine it right there. And then right after that, I'll put them in front of a red light, or we have the amortal chamber at a lot of places, and any kind of light therapy, really, a light bed if you have it. And you
Yeah.
want to time that within 20 minutes.
After the
So,
procedure, make sure that they're at least in that window, but ideally it would be right after.
yeah, yeah. And the idea here is you put the body in this frame of mind or in this place like it was when you were an infant, right? When you had all of those HOX2 genes and VEGF genes, all those things back on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the way that you do that, a lot of these cells respond to phototherapy.
Mm.
So does methylene blue, right? It activates it. So you are targeting the area that you really want to target by turning on, the fibroblasts and the chondroblasts and the osteoblasts, the things that kind of turn off when we finish puberty.
Wow.
And it's
Fascinating.
fascinating stuff. But the difference, though, is fascinating too, because you take care of guys who are going to the Caribbean and doing their stem cells, and they're told you got to wait like 4 to 6 weeks to get results. And they're doing a bunch of other things as well, so you don't really know what's working, what's not. When you activate these things and use the light therapy and you start stacking it together, I mean,
Yeah.
you've got people like jumping out of there saying, "Well, like this is crazy." I'll
Yeah.
never forget. Um, if we have a minute for a story,
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
the first time that I did this was a soccer player. It was a friend of mine. She was just like this high school phenom, and she's like, I want to do everything she can. She's got a bunch of visits, and then she had a high grade ankle sprain. It turned out to be a tear. So like a complete, I think it was calcaneofibular tear. So we injected it, and she just like starts jumping around. So like, well, this is cool. I'm going to try it with some quarterbacks, and the three quarterbacks from this team had come in. The star he's like one of the highest paid athletes in the entire country, and he was
Wow.
like, "You're not touching me with that stuff." But the other two, the backup guy and the third string, were like, "Yeah, yeah, I'm ready." And the third string guy had this lingering hip flexor issue, and it had been going on for about a season and a half. And we just did the light therapy on him. He's like, "Man, I feel better." I was like, "Well, let's do it all together." So we did it, and he literally was jumping around. He was doing this little like skipping and jumping. And he goes, I just didn't think it was going to work that quickly. I was like, well, this is the way your body's supposed to work. Like, literally, all we did was give you the ingredients, and then you turned it on, and you're better. Like, it's fascinating how quickly this stuff works.
Man. Well, and I think that's really when you look at the root of everything. What we've been talking about is mitochondria, and it's like, well, yeah, that's with light therapy, methylene blue, and imagine if you put in like, for like a TBI, for example, what if you use like Humanin and SS31 in that protocol? I mean, there's just so many cool things that can happen, and healing, from what you're saying, it can be sped up, and that's really what we're looking for. So in a safe way. So Patrick, Good to have you on. He asked, some providers are screening for the G6PD, so the hemolytic anemia, to see if there's any kind of issues with hemolysis when exposed to methylene blue. Is that something that I mean, have you screened for that, or do you think it's necessary?
Yeah, really good question, Patrick. Some people will say you screen everybody. Some people you'll say high risk individuals. Um, High risk individuals are going to be Mediterranean descent and African American descent. I think, don't quote me on this, you'll have to do some research, but I believe it's about 6% that can carry those genes. So it's fairly high. You want to use it for IVs, not necessary for oral or rectal. You're not getting high enough dose. My threshold is if I'm going above 10, I'm going to screen somebody, or if they're high risk, I'll screen them. So that's kind of the protocol that we've put in place. Um, we also do a lot of stacks. Like we do this really big, at one of the facilities, like a really big NAD. It's like 2 grams and 40 of, I think it's
Two
high dose.
grams?
Yeah, it's huge. And 10 milligrams of methylene blue and high dose glutathione. And then you add a little bit of ketamine, just an analgesic dose, which has the dual effect of like neuroplasticity and makes it tolerable. And that's like a hard reset, right? These are like hard driving people. They come in, they do a protocol of like 3 of those. Um, and those people I always screen because you're getting so much at one time. Um,
Yeah, I want to do that protocol. That's awesome. So how frequently is it? I mean, 3 treatments, like weeks apart or days apart?
Days, you typically want to do it days apart. And the idea is these are people who are like depleted and you're refilling
Okay.
their tank.
So
Um,
it might be a little overkill if I did it, but at least I got to try it once, and that's awesome.
yeah.
Um, and so that's when you would screen. And I appreciate you asking that, Patrick. Um, Cade needs that one today. He slept in the airport, not last night, but the night before.
Yeah, I need that one. That just sounds awesome. Little bit of ketamine as well as just super high doses there.
Yeah, most
Yeah.
people like it. Most people like it a lot.
All right. Another question Dr. Boland asked, Dr. Stitch, any thoughts on what we could add to IV protocol of stem cells or exosomes for some boys that have uh, are afflicted with the Duchenne's muscle dystrophy? Oh, and I'm going to be talking about ACE31 today, Matthew. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, good transition. Methylene blue, it would be a top one for sure that I would think about. Some of the peptides that Regan already mentioned. I'm a big fan of 5-amino M1Q, um, mod SC2. They both work great. Um, I'll speak just for a second because it looks like we got a new panelist, so I don't want to take up too much time. But when you think about mitochondria, the mitochondria is designed to take different forms of energy and then translate it into a usable form of energy. So just think about this. Like we have a lot of anecdotal evidence, like you need vitamin D. How does vitamin D get activated? Well, it's through light. So your body runs on a lot of different forms of energy. And as opposed to the kind of classical education, right, where you just need movement and food, you have to add to that equation light, electricity, and we'll call it like vibration. That's kind of sound and a variety of stimuli. But all those are different forms of energy, right? Light is easy, it's photons that are transferring energy.
Yeah.
Vibration is, sound or movement. So it's a form of kinetic energy, but it's not a form of kinetic energy that your body can use. Um, and then electricity is kind of the same thing. It's a potential energy, but your body can't use it. You zap somebody with lightning, they die. But if you put them on a PEMF machine, they feel better, right?
Yeah.
So your mitochondria are designed to do this exact thing. They're designed to take a form of energy from the environment, and the 5 batteries are movement, um, calories, light, sound/vibration, and electricity, and
Mm,
turn that into ATP.
yep.
So for these folks with Duchenne's, like any one of those things is going to help them. There's actually a guy out who's got a really rare form of muscular dystrophy who's like offered I think it's like a $10 million award for a cure, and it's probably not as easy as just doing one thing to fix it, right? It's, we advise these folks, you're going to have to take a multitude of different modalities to optimize that mitochondrial health, but that is ultimately our goal, because if that person might have had a lifespan of 40 and you optimize them and you get to 80% of what the average person is, well, 70 is not too bad. It doesn't sound too terrible.
Right. Yeah. And that's phenomenal. And then Matthew, make sure you stick around, and I'll share some things on the ACE-31, which was actually shown to be very effective with these boys with Duchenne's MD, and we'll be back around 11 for that one. But before we do that, we're going to talk stem cells. And Dr. Stitch, that was phenomenal. I really appreciate you taking the time to share your wisdom with us, and look forward to having many more of these conversations.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'll be listening in on the background. So thank you guys.
Yeah, thanks a lot for joining us, Dr. Stitch.
Yep.
Awesome.